Have you ever noticed how some people never seem to get sick, even when everyone around them is falling ill? What if I told you the difference between robust immunity and constant illness isn't about vitamins or supplements, but something happening right now in your brain? Today, I'm revealing the surprising brain hack that science shows can either supercharge your immune defenses or silently sabotage them from within. And once you understand it, you'll never think about your health the same way again. If you've ever wondered why you tend to catch every cold that goes around, or why you always seem to get sick during stressful periods, you're about to discover the hidden connection that mainstream health advice rarely addresses. I've spent years researching the fascinating field of psychoneuroimmunology, the science of how your brain directly communicates with and controls your immune system. What scientists have discovered is nothing short of revolutionary. Your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs don't just affect how you feel mentally, they literally reprogram your immune cells on a biological level. This isn't wishful thinking or pseudoscience. It's backed by hundreds of peer-reviewed studies from institutions like Harvard, Stanford, and the National Institutes of Health. Today, I'm breaking down the 3 critical brain pathways that determine your immune strength, and most importantly, I'll share the practical techniques to transform these connections from potential liabilities into powerful immune allies. If you're tired of feeling vulnerable to every virus that circulates and ready to take control of your health from the inside out, this may be the most important video you watch this year. So, before we dive in, you need to understand what's really at stake here. Most health-conscious people, well, they make a fundamental error in their approach to immunity. They tend to focus exclusively on external factors, like the supplements they take, the foods they eat, or maybe even the toxins they avoid. And while these things certainly matter, this incomplete understanding actually misses, perhaps, the most potent determinant of immune function, the brain-immune connection. What happens in your brain doesn't stay in your brain. Through these invisible but powerful pathways, your neural activity directly programs your immune cells for either enhanced protection or, well, increased vulnerability. This isn't minor stuff. Studies show that these brain factors can actually boost or reduce immune function by up to 300%. The damage or healing is gradual, cumulative, and honestly, often undetectable, until one day you realize your health has either flourished or deteriorated dramatically. Here's the sobering reality. No amount of vitamin C, zinc, or expensive supplements can override the powerful signals your brain sends to your immune cells on a continuous basis. Failing to harness this connection means, potentially, sabotaging every other health effort you're making. Okay, let's talk about the first pathway, your stress response system, or what I like to call the immune suppressor. Most people understand that stress isn't good for them, but they vastly underestimate its direct biological impact on immunity. They believe occasional stress is harmless, or that they can simply power through challenging periods without consequences. Here's the twist. Your brain's stress response, particularly chronic activation of the hypothalamic-pituitary-adrenal axis, that's a mouthful, I know, directly impairs immune function through multiple mechanisms. When your brain perceives threat or pressure, it triggers the release of cortisol, which, in short bursts, can actually be beneficial. However, when chronically elevated, cortisol reduces the number and effectiveness of natural killer cells, your first line of defense against viruses and cancer cells. It decreases production of secretory IgA, the antibodies that protect your mucous membranes from invaders. It suppresses T-cell function, impairing your adaptive immune response. And perhaps most concerning, it increases inflammatory cytokines, creating systemic inflammation that diverts immune resources away from fighting actual threats. But the damage doesn't stop there. The stress state shifts resources away from immunity and into fight or flight functions. Blood flow diverts from digestive organs where 70 to 80% of immune cells reside. The immune cells themselves have receptors for stress hormones, causing them to become less vigilant. Studies show natural killer cell activity decreases by up to 50% during periods of high perceived stress. Wound healing slows by up to 40%, demonstrated in controlled studies of minor wounds during exam periods. This brain-driven immune suppression, it actually shows up as increased susceptibility to upper respiratory infections. Research shows you're about 2 to 3 times more likely to catch a cold when you're under high stress. You'll experience slower recovery from illness and injury. You might notice reactivation of latent viruses like herpes, and honestly, you'll be more vulnerable to opportunistic infections that normally wouldn't cause problems. The most dangerous aspect is, really, how normalized chronic stress has become. There's digital hypervigilance from constant notifications, sleep disruption from blue light exposure, background financial and social insecurity, and those perfectionistic standards amplified by social media comparison. These aren't just annoyances, they're actively programming your immune cells to stand down when you need them most. The second critical pathway is your emotional processing system, what I call the inflammatory amplifier. Most people believe emotions are purely psychological experiences with minimal physical impact beyond momentary sensations. They separate emotional health from physical immunity as unrelated systems. Science now shows this couldn't be further from the truth. Your emotional states, especially unprocessed negative emotions, directly impact immune function through inflammatory pathways. Different emotional states create distinct biological signatures in your body. Sustained anger increases inflammatory cytokines IL-6 and TNF-alpha by up to 6 times baseline levels. Persistent sadness activates NF-kappa B pathways that upregulate inflammation throughout the body. Emotional suppression, bottling up your feelings, correlates with higher C-reactive protein levels, a marker of systemic inflammation. Even rumination, that tendency to replay negative experiences in your mind, reactivates the immune system as if the threat were still present. The vagus nerve plays a crucial role in this connection. This major nerve running from your brain to your organs regulates the body's inflammatory responses. Low vagal tone associated with negative emotional states permits unchecked inflammation. High vagal tone associated with positive emotional states inhibits excessive inflammation. Your emotional regulation directly influences vagal tone, creating either protection or vulnerability against inflammatory conditions. What's fascinating is that your immune system actually has an emotional memory. Early life emotional experiences shape adult immune function through developmental programming. Adverse childhood experiences correlate with adult inflammatory disorders. The immune system becomes conditioned to respond to emotional patterns established earlier in life. But here's the good news. Emotional processing therapies have been shown to normalize immune parameters in clinical studies. This emotional immune connection manifests as inflammatory conditions that flare during emotional distress, susceptibility to infection during periods of grief or depression, allergic responses triggered by emotional states, and autoimmune conditions that correlate with unresolved emotional trauma. Most people don't recognize common emotional patterns that deplete immunity, digital relationships replacing deeper emotional connections, cultural norms that discourage emotional expression, toxic positivity that prevents processing of genuine emotions, empathetic overload from constant exposure to global suffering, and background anxiety from information overload. The third pathway may be the most surprising. Your belief and perception system, what I call the expectation programmer. Most people assume their conscious thoughts and beliefs have minimal impact on biological functions like immunity. They see the immune system as an autonomous collection of cells operating independently of higher brain functions. But research reveals a remarkable truth. Your beliefs and perceptions literally program immune function through neurobiological pathways. The placebo effect isn't just about pain relief. It extends to immune function as well. Placebo effects can account for 30 to 70% of therapeutic benefits in immune conditions. The nocebo effect, negative expectations producing negative outcomes, can generate real symptoms and immune suppression through negative expectations. Studies show subjects told they've been exposed to an allergen will produce inflammatory responses even with no actual allergen present. Belief in treatment efficacy correlates with measurable changes in immune cell function. The brain's expectation of healing activates endogenous cannabinoid and opioid systems that modulate immunity. How you perceive your world shapes your immune reality. Studies show optimists have higher natural killer cell activity than pessimists. Perceived control over stressors reduces their immune-suppressing effects by up to 50%. Cultural beliefs about health actually influence susceptibility to inflammatory conditions. Even your sense of meaning and purpose directly influences immune resilience. Having strong purpose in life correlates with reduced inflammatory markers. Meaninglessness correlates with impaired immunity. Studies show caregivers with a sense of purpose show better immune profiles than those who feel burdened. These belief-driven immune effects manifest as differential responses to identical treatments based on belief geographic variations in symptoms for the same conditions and, those sudden health improvements that can happen after belief-shifting events. Most people don't recognize common belief patterns that undermine immunity. Things like medical trauma, creating unconscious negative expectations, cultural messages about inevitable health decline with age, media-driven health anxiety that creates hypervigilance, limiting identity beliefs about your own health capacity, and honestly, just confusion from all the contradictory health information out there, creating belief uncertainty. Now that you understand these three critical brain immune pathways, let's explore what you can do to transform them from potential liabilities into, powerful immune allies. I'm going to share 3 research-backed techniques, one for each pathway, that can create significant shifts in your immune function. For the stress pathway, coherence training represents perhaps the most powerful intervention. This practice creates a state of optimal communication between heart and brain that has been shown to increase heart rate variability, a key marker of vagal tone and immune regulation. Regular practice reduces cortisol by up to 23% and increases secretory IgA, your first-line mucosal defense. It improves natural killer cell function by up to 37%. Here's how to practice it. Begin with heart-focused breathing. Inhale for 5 seconds, exhale for 5 seconds. While maintaining this breathing pattern, generate a genuine feeling of appreciation or care. Visualize your breath flowing through your heart area for 3 to 5 minutes. Practice this 3 times daily, especially before potential stressors. This simple practice creates a shift from sympathetic or fight or flight to parasympathetic, which is rest and restore dominance. And, this directly benefits your immune function. For the emotional pathway, emotional regulation training provides remarkable immune benefits. Specific emotional regulation techniques directly impact immune function, decreasing inflammatory cytokines associated with negative emotional states and increasing anti-inflammatory regulatory T cells. Begin with regular emotional awareness practices like body scanning to notice where you hold emotions physically. Learn to label emotions with specificity, rather than vague terms like bad or stressed. Practice a compassionate witness state during emotional activation instead of, suppression or rumination. And implement structured emotional processing practices. Setting aside 10 minutes daily to write about emotional experiences has actually been shown to improve immune parameters. For the belief pathway, implement the belief recoding protocol. Systematic belief work can reprogram immune expectations with surprising speed. So to begin, start by identifying limiting health beliefs through reflective inquiry. What do you believe about your body's resilience? Then trace the origins of these beliefs to really understand how they developed over time. Next, collect counter-evidence that challenges these limitations. After that, create new evidence by taking on small, progressive challenges. And finally, establish new identity-level beliefs through affirmation and embodiment practices. Now, this isn't just positive thinking, it's actually strategic reprogramming of the neurological patterns that directly communicate with your immune cells. If you've watched this far, you clearly understand that your immunity isn't simply a matter of luck or genetics, it's significantly influenced by how you operate your remarkable brain-body connection. And it's not too late to transform these invisible pathways from sources of vulnerability to foundations of extraordinary resilience. I understand how overwhelming it can feel to discover that your own thought patterns and emotional responses may have been unknowingly undermining your health. But remember that this same powerful connection means you have far more control over your immunity than you previously realized. The journey toward optimal immunity doesn't require perfection. Small, consistent shifts in how you manage your stress responses, process emotions, and frame your health beliefs can create compounding benefits over time. Imagine waking up each day with growing confidence in your body's intelligent protection, remaining resilient when others around you succumb to illness, and maintaining vibrant energy even during challenging times. Your immune system is listening attentively to your brain's instructions every moment of every day. Starting today, you can begin sending signals of safety, resilience, and vitality that will be translated into biochemical protection throughout your body. If you found value in this information, please hit that like button and subscribe to get more evidence-based health insights that go beyond the basics. Type immune in the comments if this video gave you a new perspective on immunity, or share which of these brain-immune connections surprised you the most. For more detailed guides on each of these techniques, check out the resources linked in the description below. Remember, your immunity follows your attention. Direct it wisely and your body will respond accordingly.